We're going to be covering the brand new live streamed event, which was the Jump Festa event, which happened over the past couple of days over the weekend. This covers a lot of news to do with how Yu-Gi-Oh is going into the future, any new promotions, as well as any brand new cards that they want to promote for this period. So we'll start off by doing this. Technically, that's probably the best idea. Put myself there, and we've got the Konami Promotional Pack 2023. You'll have a series of various cards which will help to improve your battle strategy, and the first one is called X-Dox Hydra. It's a water attribute reptile type fusion effect monster. It's level 4 with 2000 attack and 2000 defense. It requires 2 and more monsters you control that are special summoned from the extra deck. The first effect is 1 monsters your opponent controls of the same type, be that a fusion, a synchro, an Xyz, a pendulum, or a link, are used as any of the materials used for this card's fusion summon, lose attack equal to their own original attack. And the second effect, when this card inflicts 1000 or more battle damage to your opponent, you can draw 1 card for every 1000 points of damage they took. This is quite an impressive effect. Firstly, it can actually be brought out by cards such as Instant Fusion. The only downside is you don't get the first effect as it wasn't properly fusion summoned with the required materials. However, if you are facing off against certain types of decks and you happen to have those cards in your extra deck, for example, if you're facing off against synchro monsters, it would be a good way of zeroing out your opponent's attack points. The benefit of this is it's essentially making this card do a direct attack, but with the additional bonus that by doing those 2000 points of damage, you're able to draw 2 cards. It's a consistent version of Greed within a card form. The concerns of this card are, firstly, that if your opponent is running various other cards, then you might not have the extra deck space, considering it's limited at 15, to be able to accommodate for each style. You wouldn't be able to necessarily fit all of the requirements for a deck in the main deck as well. Consider that synchros require tuners, you need pendulums for pendulum monsters, you will require links, you require all these different cards, you require polymerization, mostly for fusion monsters, especially if they're specifically archetype based. But again, depending on what your opponent is running, if they're just running mostly effect monsters, then even if you're doing that 1000 points of damage rather than the 2000 because it doesn't suppress effect monsters through its effect, you're still able to draw those 1 cards. Or there's also other ways of getting your opponent's monsters down to 0 attack points or even 100 attack points. I can think of Dark World Shackles. That's a good way of putting your opponent's monsters to 100 attack points, or even cards such as Acid of Despair, which boosts this card up by 1000 attack points. The next card we have is Tri-Edge Master. This is a light attribute warrior type synchro effect monster. It's level 6 with 2100 attack and 1800 defense. It requires a tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters, and you can only use the effect of this card's name once per turn. 1, if this card is synchro summoned, you can apply one of these effects on the level based on the levels of the materials used for this card summon. If you used 3 or more materials, apply all 3 effects in sequence. So 1 and 5, you can destroy 1 other card on the field, 2 and 4, you get to draw an additional card, and 3 and 3, this card is treated as a tuner. In terms of the effect, the best option for you to go is the 3 cards, so it's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. That way you get to use each of those effects. It is a shame that you can't decide the order of them. They have to be destroy a card first, then draw a card, and then it becomes a tuner. Otherwise, if you had more flexibility on that, that would be more ideal. And it does heavily utilize your resources. Ideally, you would be using this as a 3-step kind of use, but maybe you're only looking for 1 or 2 of the effects, in which case you may want to dedicate to other cards and other bits of the effect. For example, the destruction effect is usually useful in most types of deck. In terms of the drawing a card, that's also very useful, but in terms of the synchro tuner this card becomes, it's good for synchro climbing styles of decks, but not necessarily useful for decks that don't like to specialize in this, or in decks that just don't really have this type of room. Remember, you've only limited to 15 cards in the extra deck, and that's enough of a limitation to make it a concern. The next card we have is called Dalatent, the Liquid Giant. It's a water attribute zombie type Xyz pendulum effect monster. That is quite an extreme combination of cards, an Xyz that happens to also be a pendulum monster. I don't think I usually see that often. This has a scale of 3, a rank of 4, and it has 2400 attack and 400 defense. The pendulum effect. You can only use the pendulum effect of this card's name once per turn. 1. You can target one Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. And the monster effect, it just requires 2 level 4 monsters. If you can pendulum summon at level 4, you can pendulum summon this face-up card in your extra deck. You can only use the first and second effects of this card's name once per turn. 1. You can detach one material from this card, place this card in your pendulum zone, then you can add one pendulum monster from your graveyard to your extra deck face up. And 2. If this card is in the monster zone, is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. So in terms of the pendulum effect, just being able to use this as an Xyz material can be useful in pairing it with cards, maybe Xyz monsters that have already used up all their materials or require an additional material to get the full benefit of their effects without having to run very specific types of support, since this is just taking up a slot in your extra deck rather than an extra card you need in your main deck. The normal type of effects for the monster effects, being able to detach a material just to put this in the pendulum zone, means that you've got a scale 3 ready. It would have been nice if it had been one of the extremes, had that been either a scale 1 or a scale 10. That way you could pendulum summon a much wider variety of pendulum monsters. That would be more ideal. In terms of that, being able to recover a pendulum monster from the graveyard to the extra deck face up, I don't necessarily understand the relevance of this unless you are trying to pendulum summon that monster into the extra monster zone with this card's effect. Otherwise, you could just revive it with cards such as Call of the Haunted and Monster Reborn, etc. The second ability, if this is in the monster zone and it's destroyed, you just get to put it in pendulum zone. There are plenty of pendulum monsters that have this style of effect, and it's no longer what I would consider to be special. We have a final card in this, well, we've got a couple of cards left in this section, which is the Tuna Hickey Tug of War. It's a field spell card. The first effect, when either player draws a tuna monster for their normal draw during their draw phase, they can reveal that card. That player then gets to draw 2 cards. And 2, if your opponent draws with this card's first effect, you lose 2,000 life points, and if you do, send this card to the graveyard. My biggest concern of this is if this is a mirror match and you are facing off against another synchro style of deck, and they draw into this, then not only are you taking 2,000 points of damage, which is a steep curve, your opponent is drawing those 2 cards, and this card is going to the graveyard, which means you can't get the benefit from this effect anymore, unless you're recovering it with other support. First effect is really useful if you aren't facing a mirror match, because simply by stacking your deck so that you can guarantee drawing into tuna monsters, you're always going to be getting that additional pot of greed effect. So potentially this is a 3-for-1 effect. If you've got a tuna, you not only draw into the tuna, you get to draw 2 additional cards. How many cards can you say in the game give you that level of immediate advantage without massive downsides? And here we go, just in this section itself, we have the final card. This is Rainvolution Lab. It's a continuous trap card with the effect, once per turn you can target one face-up monster on the field, it becomes a machine monster. Also, its attributes are treated as light, dark, earth, water, fire, and wind. I don't know the specific benefits of this card, and if anyone does, I'd love to see those in the comments down below. The only thing I can think of is cards such as Element Burst, which require the tribute of a monster of 4 attributes. I think it's earth, water, fire, and wind, if it's needed for that type of requirement. Or potentially there are certain Xyz and synchro monsters that require a particular typing and a particular attribute in order to summon those monsters out. I think there's a couple of fusions that also have these types of requirements, and therefore it might be useful from that point of view. Again, I'm kind of stuck to this. I don't think it's an amazing card, and I think it could be easily forgotten. I think you've got so many attribute and type adjusting even monsters by their effects that this is going to be just lost. So that is to do with that section. We're going to have a look into the next one, and in this case we will be focusing on, I think this is the Rush Duel promotion pack. Yeah, just give me a sec and I'll bring that up. If you guys want to see more live streams in the future, please let me know. I am testing these. I mean, today is pretty much the first test, and I'm hoping to do a little bit more just as an engagement type of thing, or even just because sometimes, you know, life can be quite busy and it's a way of still interacting with you guys. It's something I really enjoy, and I mean, for example, for me, I'm going to be spending my Christmas this year on my own. So I really kind of, because of the situation with the strikes happening in the UK. Anyway, back to the content. So we have the promotion pack 2023. We have Wave Crest Mador. This is level 5 water attribute spellcaster type effect monster with 1000 attack and 1200 defense. The requirements are you can activate this by sending one spellcaster monster from the hand to the graveyard, and the effect is to choose and destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. The requirement on this card is not difficult to meet, so long as you've got a spellcaster in hand. It doesn't have to even be a spellcaster in terms of you need a certain number of those in your graveyard to trigger off this effect. You then just get to wipe out one of your opponent's spell or trap cards, and with Rush Duels they can only ever have up to 3 spell or traps on the field at any one time. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting one of the better cards they've got set, instead of one of the duds. In terms of name, it is a Mador monster. There are a couple of other examples. I think there are 3 in total. If you add this, that'll be 4. So you have the original Aqua Mador that has a 1200 attack. Level 4, it's got 2000 defense. It's just a normal monster, nothing really that impressive. It's high defense and was introduced in one of the original packs from Yugioh. In terms of the upgrade, it did get one as Neo Aquamador. It was a level 6 with, well, it is a level 6 with 1200 attack and 3000 defense. That makes it quite bulky. And then there's another version which is like Glacial Aquamador, and that's meant to be support for normal monsters. I think it also has the same stat line, 1200 attack and 3000 defense. And I think it's used to protect your normal monsters from battle, or it's able to special summon itself. Again, if it's something you guys know of, actually, you know what, I'm gonna just bring that up now, see what that card is. Glacial Mador. Let's see what you are. Yeah, Glacial Aquamador. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, my internet's being a bit slow today, so we'll bring that up. Let's get you up on the web page. And here you go. This is the new upgrade version that they released relatively recently. Again, it's the same stat lineup as the Neo Aquamador, and at the start of the damage step, if a normal monster battles an opponent's monster, you can reveal this card in your hand. You can discard one card, and if you do, your monster cannot be destroyed by that battle. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can reveal one normal monster in your hand, discard one card, and if you do, destroy that opponent's monster. So it does have the form of protecting your normal monster from being destroyed in battle, and actually if you use this card as part of the battle, then you're able to just discard a card by revealing a normal monster and then just destroy your opponent's monster without having to fully engage in battle. So that's kind of the selection you've got there. In terms of the relevance of it, I don't think it's going to be that useful for a level 5 with that stat lineup. It's going to be easily forgotten. So we've got a couple of other cards which were introduced back from the original series of Yu-Gi-Oh! First is Silent Doom. This is a normal spell card with no requirements. The effect is to choose one normal monster in your graveyard and special summon it to your field face up in defense position. While the special summon monster is face up on the field, it cannot attack. This is the same effect basically as the original Silent Doom. It's meant to be used to bring out something like a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and even with the 2,500 defense points that can be useful. Even not, it can be used as part of a tribute for another level 5 or level 6 monster, or perhaps even higher than that if you've got the requirements on the field. And the final card in this section we are looking at is called Widespread Ruin. This is a legend card, and legend cards have had a bit of an errata. In previous, it used to be a requirement that you could only ever have one legend card, and that would be the only one you could actually have within any deck. You couldn't have any more than that. The thing now is that you can have a legend card for each type of card, so you can have a legend card which is a trap, a legend card which is a monster, and a legend card which is a spell card. This is a normal trap card with the requirement when your opponent monster declares an attack, you can activate this. As the effect, you can choose and destroy your opponent's attack position monster with the highest attack. Now, this may not actually be the battling monster your opponent is going for, it just has to be the attacking monster that has the highest attack points. So if your opponent has two monsters on the field, they've got a 2000 attack monster and they've got a 2500 attack monster. So in that example, you could use Sword Stalker with the 2000 attack and Dark Magician as the 2500. The Sword Stalker is attacking your monster, which might be Giant Soldier of Stone, just as an example. And you flip this card over, it would actually destroy the Dark Magician and not the Sword Stalker because the Dark Magician had higher attack points on the field. So overall, these three cards aren't relatively that impressive. I am glad to see that Widespread Ruin has been reintroduced into the game, and I do think it's quite useful. Only concern with this is that I believe a lot of the maximum monsters do have immunity from trap effects, and there are other cards which have the ability to protect themselves from trap effects or gain those effects from other cards such as spell cards or from other monster effects. So this card is no longer as viable as it used to be. So we're going to move on to the next section of news, and that is looking at what we're covering. Next lot of news we'll be looking at is called Duel Links Future Circuit. So it's going to be just an introduction that they're putting in place just to encourage more players to come back into Duel Links. Personally, I haven't played Duel Links for quite a long time, so I don't know the state of the game, I don't know where it's at, and I don't know how relevant it is. If you guys are players still of Duel Links, I'd love to know your feedback and what do you think the game needs in order to improve. So as you can see here, these are the cards which are going to be introduced. These are all coming from, I believe, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. So you've got the signature card, which is Firewall Dragon, you've got a Trickstar monster, you've got a Goki monster, and you've got Nightmare Unicorn. This, as it says at the top, is going to be released on the 1st of January 2023, so it's starting at the mark off of the brand new year. Essentially, most of these cards are useful for something. I mean, Firewall Dragon and Nightmare Unicorn can actually be brought out with no real restrictions to them. I mean, they basically come out and they can be summoned. They don't need specific monsters. I believe the Trickstar and the Goki do need to be specifically within their own archetypes to have their effects. I think this is quite useful. It's just a good way of helping to upgrade decks, but we'd have to wait and see how this actually impacts Duel Links. So I'm just bringing up the next one, and that is going to be looking at this one is looking at a brand new Neos card, and it's called Elemental Hero Armed Neos. It is a level 10 monster, so that actually makes it very impressive for what it is. And it's a Wind Attribute Warrior type fusion effect monster with 3,500 attack and 3,000 defense. The materials are an Elemental Hero Neos and an Armed Dragon monster, and it must be fusion summoned. The first effect is if this card is special summoned, you can choose one dragon monster in your graveyard and destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls with an attack with an equal or lower level. And the second effect, when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can make this card gain this effect. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you contribute this card, special summon one Elemental Hero fusion monster from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. This is meant to be a combination of Traz Princeton's monster, the Armed Dragon series, with Jaden Yuki's Elemental Hero Neos monster. Considering that Chaz Princeton was the main rival of Jaden Yuki, it would make sense. They do have these types of pairings now and again. It does have amazing attack and defense points for a level 10 monster, and it can be fused with any of the Armed Dragon monsters, so you can either go for the original series, which is the level 3 all the way up to the level 10, or you have the Armed Dragon Thunder, I think it's called Thunderbolt, which includes the equivalents which came out of Lightning Overdrive maybe a year or so ago. Either way, you can achieve this requirement. Its first effect is just to choose a dragon monster in your graveyard and just wipe out all your opponent's face-up monsters with equal or lower levels. If you've got, it could be any dragon monster, it doesn't have to be an armed dragon, so if you've got, for example, the 5 god dragon, 5-headed dragon in the graveyard, which is a level 12, you can just guarantee to be wiping out all of your opponent's monsters. Downside of this is if your opponent has Xyz monsters, then those are ranks and not, for example, levels, and also link monsters have link ratings, so they do have some element of drawback for this effect. The second ability, just by destroying a monster by battle, you're just able to swap this card out for any Elemental Hero fusion monster. It's very useful considering that depending on where you are within the duel, and depending on what type of effect is that you require at the time, you have so many different fusion monsters that happen to be elemental heroes. There's no way you can kind of avoid it. You'll find something useful. In terms of the other extras that are coming in here, so you've got AA Zeus sleeves. You've got an example of the product itself, so you've got it up there. And each will come with their own specific things. So you've got a special dice, a special duelist card protector set, a special storage box, a special field center card, and a special card case. As a reminder, the secret utility box comes with the holographic rares of the last 3 years, so you do get quite an option. You do have Access Code Talker in there, you do have AA Zeus, and there are plenty of options for you to choose. In terms of, there are going to be 4 secret utility box special packs. Each will consist of 10 cards per pack, with a draw pool of 80 cards. So you're getting 40 cards, and potentially you do have quite good chances of pulling decent cards. So I'm just bringing up the next bit of news. And this is to do with the OCG Rarity Collection, Quarter Century Edition. So this is to mark the 25-year anniversary, which will happen on the 18th of February 2023. This will have a load of alternative arts to various cards. And as part of this, as confirmed within this, you've got the Eldritch, the Golden Lord, and you've got Nightmare Unicorn. And as you can see, they've just been adapted for brand new designs. So you've got here just the alternative arts. I do think they are quite impressive, and I do like the 3D look and feel of them. It's definitely something I'd consider picking up, but I'd love to hear what your opinions are in the comments section down below. We're going to be covering the next bit of news. So here we have a combination of the various pot of greed style of cards, and they're going to be as statues, so you'll be able to collect these. It's a Konami style and Konami Game Station satellite shop store exclusives, and these pre-orders are until January the 29th, 2023. These come with 14 ultra parallel foils of the existing jars and pots. So there you go, so you've got so many different examples. You've got Pot of Extravagance, you've got Pot of Greed, you've got Pot of Desires, Pot of Duality. Anyone that name the rest of them, be my guest, put those in the comments. And look at these wonderful pots and jars. For me personally, I'm not really into merchandise, so I don't think I'd collect that. I think they could be a bit tacky. Not attacking anyone. If you like these type of things, then be my guest, go for it. It's just not my thing. And there are the examples of the reprints. So potentially you get these. I'm going to assume that you're going to get the one that relates to the pot that you purchase. So if you get a Pot of Greed, you'll get a Pot of Greed. And various examples, so it might actually be worth getting them. Even if you don't want the model and the statue itself. But for the card, sometimes the price on the cards are going to be very expensive. They are ultra parallel foils, so that's a high rarity on them. You've just got up there a kind of on the top from above, like a bird's eye type of view. You have some reference artwork for the pots and jars, and you have an example here as to how the new rarity is going to look. So here we have some brand new figures that have been confirmed as well. These are monster figure collections, and one of these is one of your favourite anime girls. It's Dark Magician Girl. So you do have Kotobukiya will be making figures of the Charmers. I love the Charmers. It is my personal favourite. It's one of my favourite archetypes to be using. So you've got also the Earth Charmer, Araya the Water Charmer, Heater the Fire Charmer, and Win the Wind Charmer. Saying that, you do not get access to either Light the Lunar, the Light Charmer, or Dark the Dark Charmer, which is a bit strange. But considering that the original 4 elemental charmers are here, I'm not complaining. And there's also going to be a confirmation of IP Masquerena that's going to be released as a figure, and it's going to be done in combination with Ami Ami and X Snail Shell. I don't know when this is going to be confirmed. I believe at the moment there is no confirmation date. It's just the announcement that you have these and that they're going to be made available at some point. So when that news comes out, don't fear, I will make you guys I will let you know, is what I meant to say. And there's just some general news that's coming out of this section, so just keep that in mind. This is not anything specific, but it's just information that's been kind of passed on that doesn't specify with any kind of realm or department. Everything not a specific product. So you've got a Dark Magician Girl playmat that does look quite nice. I think I might be picking one of those up. You've got a Dark Magician special card stainless steel. There are going to be 10,000 of those to be made, and they will come with serial numbers, so you'll be able to say you have, for example, number 1,000 of the 10,000, or if you're lucky enough, you might get number 1 of 10,000. Usually when you get those types where you've got numbers associated with them, and if you've got one of the first batch, they tend to be rarer. Well, every number will be rare because there's only one of each number, but the whole point is you're only going to, have that specific number, and the closer it is to 1, the better you are off. It's going to be 16,500 yen with a base price of 15,000 yen. This is when you add the tax onto it. And in order to enter, you'll have to be entered into a lottery. So that's interesting. You have to, even before buying it, you have to be given the permission to enter the lottery. And in terms of, we've got a quarter century jewel set. This is covering the Winged Dragon of Ra. This is going to be a HMV/Loppy exclusive, so there must be some type of distribution on that. It's going to include a rubber jewel field, so you get the one that you can see on the screen, the Winged Dragon of Ra, as a quarter century secret rare, so it's a brand new kind of look to it. And a commemorative medal. Pre-orders for these will start on the 18th of February it says 2022 there, that's a mistake, there's a typo there on Yugioh organization. It's meaning 2023. We hit here the Egyptian God cards goods. So these are also Loppy and HMV based, and these are going to introduce big towels and stainless steel tumblers. These are also set for February 18th next year. There's going to be a Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh! TikTok at Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Game Official, so there must be some announcement, and this is going to happen on the 26th of February 2023. It says here that Yu-Gi-Oh! United Duel Tournament will be held at Konami-friendly shops, which are OTS or official tournament stores, which have been regulated in Japan. And there is an application period that is going, well, if you want to enter it and you want to be in for a shout of getting some of the prizes, you're going to have to enter anywhere between the 26th of December, so that's Boxing Day, all the way up to the 15th of January next year. And the prizes which seem to be shown are a rubber jewel field of Eldlick the Golden Lord, and event winners and lottery winners can get a special rare, special blue version of Gaia the Fierce Knight. I think it's the same as a lot of these where the text on it is shiny, and this is going to be like shiny blue. There has been other promotions. There was one with Blue Eyes White Dragon, which was a shiny, and it had like a red color texture across it. And they've got confirmation here of the Japanese Tournament Championship 2023. And here are just some more information. You've got shops which are going to participate in March and May, with areas going into areas in the internationals. Those that participate get a common version of another Verse Dragon, and the winners will get a super rare version of that same card. That's the news. There's no other major changes to the OCG or the trading card game, which were introduced at that point. But I'm sure there's more information. Don't go yet. We've got more things to cover. And here we have some more news that's happening on the 25th anniversary special stage. And this just confirms that in terms of the Rarity Collection, the Quarter Century Edition, you can get a reprint of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and Nibiru, the Primal Being. Both of these are very useful hand traps, and so would be welcomed as part of the support. In terms of monster figures, if you're into that type of thing, there is a planned lineup of cards including Sky Striker Ace Ray, Sky Striker Rose, Brionac, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, Gemini Elf, and Apprentice Illusion Magician. So you see all those up in the images up there. When those are going to be available, it's yet to they've not given any information on that one. So here we've got some more news to do with the brand new set for Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel, and this is coming out on the 21st of January 2023. This is called, it's including the Star Lose Ace Fusion Monster, and that's the cover card of the Double Star of the Assault. And some of the major cards that have been shown in the set, as you can see in the example up above. You've got Cat Claw Girl. This is a level 7 Dark Attribute Warrior type effect monster with 2200 attack and 200 defense. The requirement: you can activate this card by placing one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck, and the effect is to choose one beast monster with 200 defense in your graveyard and special summon it to your field face up. If you special summoned a normal monster, you can also choose one fusion from your graveyard and directly set it in your spell and trap zone. In terms of a level 7 monster, it's quite weak. 200 defense points is nothing, and even 2200 attack points is just barely decent. Usually you see this in level 6 monsters. Even things such as Luster Dragon number 2 is stronger than this at 2400 attack points. The requirement: just to send one card from your hand to the bottom of the deck is fine. You're going to send the worst card you've got in the hand. You're not going to be sending the best one, because it'll take ages for you to then redraw into that card. The effect itself is to just choose a specific, it has to be specifically a beast monster, and it has to have 200 defense. This is what annoys me, that it has to be that specific, and just get to special summon it. Depending on what that is, it could be more useful. If it has an effect, it can still be activated. There aren't any restrictions on or negations attached to that. And if you happen to have special summoned a normal monster, you then get to just bring out a fusion, which I think that fusion lets you just use it as polymerization to fuse two monsters you have already on the field. I'll actually have a check for that. Just one sec. Fusion. Fusion Rush Duel. Yeah. It's coming up. Yes, the card itself is just like fusion summoned by sending face-up monsters from your field to the graveyard as material. It's basically like a worse version of polymerization, because polymerization lets you use from the hand or the field. Fusion requires just specifically from the field. The Star Dragia Star is a level 9 light attribute high dragon fusion effect monster with 3300 attack and 2500 defense. The materials are the Star Dragius. You need 2 of those, and the requirements are: if there are 2 or more normal monsters in your graveyard with the same name, you can activate this by sending one card from your hand to the graveyard, as a choice of effects, so you can either choose the first or second. Choose 2 attack position monsters you control with the same name. During this turn, they can each attack twice per turn. Or choose 2 normal monsters with the same name in your graveyard and special summon them to your field face up. The summoning requirement on this card is quite difficult because it needs 2 specifically named cards that happen to be the same monster. That is a pain. The requirement, if there are 2 or more normal monsters in the graveyard, you can just trigger off this effect, so you do have to be running multiple of the same monsters, and they also have to be normal monsters to meet the requirement. Having the ability to attack twice with each of those monsters means that you can do 4 attacks in a turn. That's usually more than enough to wipe out your opponent, especially if you're using more powerful monsters. And it's not limited to just attacking your opponent's monsters, they can do direct attacks as well. So if it happens to be a case that you've managed to wipe out your opponent's field by cards such as Raigeki or Dark Hole, then you've got an open board to direct attack for, well, technically 5 times, because if you include this card, you're definitely doing over 8,000 points of damage in that turn. The other option you've got is to just choose 2 normal monsters with the same name and just special summon them to the field. So it's whichever's your preference. Do you want the field advantage, or you just want to finish off and close out the game? And we have the multi-strike Dragon Dragius, which is going to be an Overrush rare. This one just has the ability that, once it's attacked over a monster, it can then attack again. But I think that attack has to be on another monster. So it's not that useful, it's just kind of a reprint card. But it does mention here that it's going to introduce a new theme, whose effects will be revealed in the future. Its name is Soikyu, which means Azure Salvation, which might be in reference to Sky Savior. And you've got these, so this is Soleil, the Sky Savior Angel. She's obviously named after Sol, which is the Latin name for the sun. These seem to be weather themed. You've got Lua, the Sky Savior Angel, so that's named after Luna, which is the name for the moon. You've got Dunkes, the Sky Savior Knight, which is based on Dunkelheit, the German word for darkness. You have De Grace, the Sky Savior Radiance, which could be day, raise, grace, and disgrace, any of those. You have Dorkmore, the Sky Savior Phantom, which is a combination of dark and meh, so dark sea, or maybe more as in Claymore. And you've got Guildford, the Lightning has actually arrived in Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Doors. So this is actually a legend card. It's a level 8 light attribute warrior type effect monster. It's got 2,800 attack and 1,400 defense. This card can be tributed in attack position by tributing 3 monsters. The requirement: if this card was tribute summoned this turn by tributing 3 monsters, you can activate this. The effect is to destroy all monsters your opponent controls. This was used by Joey Wheeler, and it was used a couple of times. It was used in the duel against Marek Ishtar when he was facing him in the semi-finals, and there was another battle where Joey Wheeler faced off against Yugi's grandpa and his ancient dragon deck. It's got a decent effect, and considering that Rush Duels is still not overly that powered, it can still be useful as a legend card. And we've actually got a brand new Guildford card. It's called Guildford the Rising. It's a level 8 fire attribute warrior type effect monster with 2,500 attack and 2,200 defense. This card cannot be special summoned. The requirement: during the turn this card was normal summoned, you can shuffle 2 warrior monsters in your graveyard back into your deck. The effect is this card can attack monsters 3 times during each battle phase this turn. This is quite a strange effect. The requirement is it cannot be special summoned, so it has to be summoned normally. It has to be tribute summoned, which means you need 2 tributes. Or if you've got something that can treat itself as 2 tributes, you can always use that. The requirement is just by shuffling 2 warrior monsters back from the graveyard into the deck, so you can actually have met that condition by summoning this card in the first place. This card can just wipe out all of your opponent's monsters, potentially. Considering that the Rush Duels limits you to 3 monsters on a field at any one time, you can pretty much guaranteed clear your opponent's cards. I would say it does need to be paired with things that can do piercing damage. That way you can, if you can't direct attack using this effect, at least you can get some damage in. So here we have the news to do with a brand new dual disc, which is like the ones used in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. And this is not a specific product, Rush Duel Edition, and you've got the Yugioh version, which is currently going to be on sale. It comes with a combination of 5 secret rare promo cards, which have been revealed previously, including on there you can see Dark Magician Girl and Magic Cylinder. Of course, Magic Cylinder is probably the one you want most. There is a Dark Magician Secret Rare Special Blue version, Get campaign, which you can see just there. The Dark Magician itself is a Secret Rare with a Special Blue version foiling, and you can get tickets by buying the Yugioh dual disc. In terms of, you've got this Scratch Lotto, so I'm guessing that's a way of winning the confirmed Dark Magician. And you've got Cyber Dragons being introduced as a Rush Rare. So you've got the 3 fusion monsters, so these are the 2 ones you've seen before, Cyber End Dragon, Cyber Twin Dragon, and I think this is Cyber Rush Dragon, so that's the Rush Duel version. Blaze Fiends introduce a new maximum that lets you destroy cards, draw cards, and is invincible to spell and trap cards, so that's a brand new maximum monster that gives you a certain level of immunity. There's a Red Eyes Black Dragon Secret Rare, which is also getting a special blue version foiling as part of the campaign. And as a reminder, you can use 1 legend monster, a legend spell, and 1 legend trap each in your deck. This comes actually into effect as of January the 1st, 2023 at official events. So if you're looking forward to those changes, I'd love to hear those in the comments. And as always, they love to introduce some more support for some cards, so we actually have some Tellarknight and Constellar support. That's quite unusual considering that Tellarknights came back out, well, Constellar came out at the start of like the Xyz era, and Tellarknights came out probably more so towards, I'm going to say, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. We've got Tellarknight Lyra. It's a level 4 light attribute warrior type effect monster with 1200 attack and 1600 defense. This card is always treated as a Constellar card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. 1. If a Tellarknight and or Constellar monster other than Tellarknight Lyra is normal summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And 2, if this card is summoned, you can add 1 Tellarknight spell from your deck to your hand. The decent thing about this card is that just if you happen to have another Tellarknight or a Constellar monster already normal summoned to the field, you're just able to get this out. Most of the Tellarknight monsters happen to be rank 4 Xyz monsters in terms of their boss, so it's an easy way to cheat out those cards. The secondary ability just happens to be however it's summoned, so it could be by normal summon, it could be by special summon. You're able to then just search for any of the Tellarknight spell cards. In terms of its attack and defense stat lineup, it's fine, it's level 4, you can't really expect more than that. It's more useful for its effect anyway. Next one we have is Tellarknight Altia. It's a level 4 light attribute warrior type effect monster. It's got 1700 attack and 1300 defense. This card is always treated as a Constellar card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once each per turn. 1, if this card is summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of light and dark Xyz monsters you control, destroy them. And 2, if a Tellarknight and or Constellar monster other than Tellarknight Altia is special summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. Also, you cannot declare attacks for the rest of the turn except with Xyz monsters. So this is a little bit more powerful than the previous version. This has 1700 attack points. I think there's another one called Altair which has the same attack points. This, as soon as it's summoned, you're just able to get rid of cards based on the number of light and dark Xyz monsters you control. They don't actually have to be archetype specific, so long as they meet the conditions of the attributes and the fact that they're Xyz monsters, you're fine. You can just wipe out your opponent's cards. It does come at the disadvantage that you already need to be pretty much winning to use that effect, but it's a special effect. What you're going to do. Second effect just happens to be if any monster is special summoned to your field, be it a Tellarknight or a Constellar, this card just kind of comes back, and it can be used as part of an additional Xyz summon. Remember, you are limited to using Xyz monsters for attacks for that turn, but if you're going to use this as Xyz material, then that doesn't become a limitation. My only concern really for this is it depends on how far you can kind of accelerate within your deck. If your opponent uses any type of hand trap to stop what you're doing, then this no longer is usable. The next card we've got is an Xyz monster. It's called Tellarknight Constellar Cadaceus. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a rank 4 light attribute spellcaster type Xyz effect monster with 2500 attack and 1650 defense. It requires 2 level 4 monsters to summon it, and you can use the first and second effects of this card's name each once per turn. 1, if this card is Xyz summoned, you can target 1 Tellarknight card and or 1 Constellar card in your graveyard, add them to your hand. And 2, you can banish 1 Tellarknight or Constellar monster from your hand or deck, then detach 1 material from this card. This effect becomes that banish monster's activated effect when that monster is normal summoned. So this is quite an unusual type of monster. In terms of the stat lineup, 2500 isn't bad. The summoning requirements aren't difficult, it just needs 2 level 4 monsters. The first effect, just as soon as it's Xyz summoned, just be able to recover any Tellarknight or Constellar card, so that can be monsters, spell or trap, from the graveyard back to hand, means that you've got instant access to those cards again, without having to run other forms of recovery. The second ability, just by banishing a particular Tellarknight or Constellar monster, you're able to just replicate that effect with this one. But the interesting thing is that happens as though you're treating it as you've just summoned this monster. So that's useful because cards such as Deneb require you to do that when they're immediately summoned. And if that didn't have that as part of its effect, it would be much weaker. Tellarknight Constellar is a continuous spell card with the effect you can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. 1, when this card resolves, you can special summon 1 Tellarknight or Constellar monster from your hand or graveyard. And 2, you can target 1 Tellarknight or Constellar Xyz monster you control, special summon from your extra deck 1 Tellarknight or Constellar Xyz monster with a different rank from that monster you control, by using it as material. This is treated as an Exceed summon and transfer its materials to the summoned monster. This is a very consistent card that's needed for the deck. The first ability, just able to special summon a Constellar or Tellarknight from the hand or the graveyard, whichever you need, whichever is more useful at the time. Second ability, just if you have one of these monsters as an Exceed monster already on your field, you can just stack that card under another Tellarknight or Constellar Exceed monster, and it doesn't have to be of a specific immediate rank up from it. So it doesn't have to be, if you've got a rank 4, it doesn't have to be a rank 5, it could be a rank 7, a rank 8. It could be any of those, so long as it's not of the same rank, it is free to use. This reduces the limits that a lot of Exceed monsters have, because you have your traditional ones, such as some of the number monsters that almost need their specific number to rank into their chaos number to get the best and their fullest effect. This does not require that. I would say this has gotten the same kind of treatment as cards such as Utopia, because with Utopia it doesn't have to be limited by its own rank up restrictions. There are spell cards, various other forms of support that enable these cards to be summoned much easier. That's strange. I put in a link for this one and it's come up with something I didn't want. We'll have a look and see what the new one is. That's also support, but that wasn't announced at the time. So there we go, add source. So we've got the add the camera. There we go. And this will delete and we'll add the web page. Here is the card we were supposed to be looking at. I mean, the new one, just don't pay attention to that. I will be covering that soon. This is another card. It's going to be a holographic rare, and it's called the God card of the set, which has now been revealed. This is Sword Emperor Tsumu Hakatsunagi. I think that's how you pronounce it. Not as slow as that, but obviously, you know, it is what it is. It is a level 11 Wind Attribute Warrior type Spirit effect monster with 3000 attack and 3000 defense. It cannot be special summoned, and you contribute summon this card by tributing one normal summoned or set monster. 1. If this card is normal summoned or flipped face up, activate this card. Your opponent can send any number of cards they control to the graveyard, and if they do, each player draws an equal number of cards. During the end phase of this turn, shuffle all cards that are banished on the field and in the graveyards back into the deck. And the second effect, once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return this card to the hand. It's got a decent attack and defense, and it's balanced for a level 11 monster. It can also be summoned by just using one monster as part of the tribute summon rather than two, provided that is they're normal summoned. It cannot be special summoned, so there is a limitation on it. In terms of the first effect, just by you summoning it, you are able to let your opponent send any number of cards they control to the graveyard, and each player is able to then draw that number of cards. So the more cards that they send, the more both you and your opponent draws. However, this can be a gamble because your opponent doesn't have to send. It's not a mandatory effect. If they say no, I don't want to send anything, you don't get anything, no benefit from the effect. If they then choose to send everything they've got in hope for a particular card that they can draw and turn the duel around when you're winning, and they draw into that card, you would have regretted using this card. Secondary ability is the same as all spirit monsters. There is nothing really to comment about. It just sends itself back to the hand at the end of the turn. It's typical of all spirit monsters. Nothing shocking about it. So within this set, we're also getting a Sulphur Cord monster and some more support. This is a Pendulum style of deck, which has benefits based on the Pendulum scale. So you've got a Pendulum scale, the higher Pendulum scale protects in a certain way, and another one, the lower Pendulum scale, protects in a different way. This is actually receiving a link monster. It's called Grand Sulphur Cord Kulia. It's a light attribute fairy type link effect monster with 2,700 attack points, and it has 3 link points. So you've got the down left, and the down right as where the arrows are pointing. It requires 2 or more monsters, including a pendulum monster. The first effect is it gains 100 attack for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. 2 activated effects of pendulum monsters this card points to cannot be negated. And 3, once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can special summon 1 Sulphur Cord card with an odd pendulum scale from your pendulum zone to your zone this card points to, and if you do, negate the activation. Then you can add 1 Sulphur Cord pendulum monster with an even pendulum scale from your deck to your extra deck, face up. So let's break down what this card does. It is a 2,700 attack monster, requiring 3 monsters to actually bring it out to begin with. I don't think it's that bad. Pendulum monsters can bring themselves out and the other monsters very quickly without eating up your normal summons. It does have all its link arrows pointing towards your field, so it's being in your extra monster zone means you're the only one who's going to be getting any benefit from those additional link points to summon additional extra deck monsters. The first effect, to gain 100 attack points for each face-up pendulum monster, well, they're all pendulum monsters. All the Sulphur Cord monsters, all the Accord monsters, whichever you prefer to call them, happen to be pendulum monsters. If they end up in the extra deck, that's just boosting this card up. Just 300 points, and this becomes the same attack as a Blue Eyes White Dragon. The more you've got that actually end up in the extra deck, the longer the duel is gone, the higher the attack points of this card. Second ability, activated effects of pendulum monsters this card points to cannot be negated. Very useful because it means that you can do everything you need to without any interruptions from your opponent or for them responding to anything that you do. Third effect is quite an interesting one, in that you're just able to, when your opponent activates a card or effect, so that can be anything, be it spell, trap, or monster effect, you're instantly able to special summon a Sulphur Cord monster that has an odd pendulum scale from your pendulum zone to a zone this card points to, and then negate the effect. Then you can add a Sulphur Cord pendulum monster with an even pendulum scale from the deck straight to your extra deck face up. It's an easier way to search out for specific ones because you're covering both the basis of your odd scales and your even scales. And the other card we have here is called Sulphur Cord Symphonia. It's a quick play spell card. You can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. 1. Apply these effects in sequence based on the number of face-up Sulphur Cord pendulum monsters with different names in your extra deck. So if you've got 3, all Sulphur Cord pendulum monsters you currently control gain attack equal to their own pendulum scale times 300 until the end of this turn. If it's 5, you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Then if you have a card with an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, you draw 1 card. And 7, you can special summon 1 Grand Sulphur Cord monster from your extra deck. Okay, so in terms of the first effect, that's actually quite useful because some of the scales are quite high. So if you get the higher scale ones, I think the higher scale ones are the weaker monsters and the lower scale ones are the stronger monsters. So your weaker monsters actually get a much bigger boost in their attack points than your stronger monsters because they have lower scales. But even if there's like scale 3 for a 2,500 attack monster, it still becomes a 3,400 at the end of the day, so that's nothing to sneeze at. Second, if it's got 5, then you can just destroy a card your opponent controls. That can be anything. And if you happen to also have a odd pendulum scale, then you can also draw a card, so that's just extra advantage. And the 7 is just getting out one of your boss monsters. The Grand Self-Called monsters are the boss monsters in this, so if you can just cheat out those cards, then you can actually bring out the Link monster, which is also a Grand Self-Called, or if you just give me a sec, I'm going to have a check for Grand Sulfur-Cord. Right. I'm going to have a check for Grand Sulfur-Cord. How do you spell that? Grand Sulfur-Cord. Ah, I spelt that wrong, that's why. Sulfur-Cord. So the Grand Sulfur-Cord monsters, you've got a few of them. You've got the Coolia, you also have Musicea, which is a Link 2 monster. I mean, it's not that powerful, but it's another version of it. If you've got, so you do have a couple of options here. It's not just that specific monster. It did come out of Dawn of Majesty, so with that level of protection, okay, here's the... Yeah, at the moment you only have 2 Grand Sulfur-Cord monsters. You've got the Coolia, which is the new one, which I've just reviewed, and you have Musicea, and Musicea's effect is basically, during your main phase, you can add a pendulum monster from your hand to the extra deck face up, and one face-up pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand, as long as one of them has an even pendulum scale, and the other has an odd pendulum scale. When you pendulum summon a Sulfur-Cord monster, you can target one of them, add one Sulfur-Cord pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, whose level equals the pendulum scale of that monster. You can only activate each effect of Grand Sulfur-Cord Musicea once per turn. It's a Link 2 monster with 1900 attack points, and essentially what it does is it just kind of helps you search for other cards. Not that impressive at the moment, but as we receive more support in the future, maybe it might become so. And here we have the actual new support which has been announced. So this is the normal dragon and the fusion strategy. So the new normal dragon is called Zero Dragon. It's a water attribute dragon type level 4 with 1500 attack and 0 defense. A dragon that lives in cold territories. It moves at high speeds through snowy paths. It's not particularly impressive. I mean, you do have 1500 tends to be the base rate. It's like the cap for level 4 monsters at the moment for Rush Duels. I think you have a couple that's 1600, but nothing as of yet beyond that. You have the Star Dragius, which is the requirement for the new fusion monster, which is the High Dragon monster. This is a level 7 light attribute dragon type normal monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. A dragon that made 7 supernovae go gamma ray burst. Its name is the Star Dragius, the Star Dragius. It's nothing much to say about it. It's going to be one of the main series monsters, and since it's got 2500 attack points, I'm guessing it's kind of following the same lines as Dark Magician, Elemental Hero Neos, Starless Dragon, Utopia, Odd Eyes, Pendulum Dragon. All of those had 2500 as a requirement. Firewall Dragon, just not to forget that. And here we have a card called, this is a new fusion. This is Double Zero Dragons. It's a level 9 water attribute high dragon fusion effect monster. It has 2800 attack and 1700 defense. The materials require 2 ray dragons, and the requirement is if the only monsters in your graveyard are dragon or high dragon monsters, you could pay 500 life points, and you can choose between these effects. Either one face-up normal monster you control during this turn can make an attack twice, or you can choose one fusion in your graveyard and directly set it to your field, your spell and trap zone. So with this, I mean, 2,800 requiring 2 requirements is not bad. In terms of the life point cost, it's only 500 life points. It's not going to cost you that much. You either have the option to let one of your normal monsters attack twice, and so they can be direct attacks, or they can be on monsters, or a combination of both. Or the second option is just to recover your fusion card from the graveyard. So you can essentially fuse a second time that turn. The Star Dragir Star is a level 9 light attribute high dragon fusion effect monster. This is the one that I was saying before is the main boss monster, so this has got 3,300 attack and 2,500 defense, and it requires 2 of the Star Dragir monsters. The requirement, if there are 2 or more normal monsters in your graveyard with the same name, you can activate this by sending 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. The effect is either choose 2 attack position monsters you control with the same name during this turn, they can each attack twice per turn, or choose 2 normal monsters with the same name in your graveyard and special summon them to your field face up. The first requirement on this card is just easy enough, but the problem is getting those 2 monsters to fuse in the first place, to actually search for those cards. The requirement just happens to need you to have 2 normal monsters with the same name. You're going to have to run a very specific dedicated deck to actually benefit from this strategy. The first effect is to just let your monsters attack twice each. So you could potentially get 5 attacks off. So if you include this card and the 2 cards that you choose with the same name, that's an additional 5 attacks, instead of the 3 attacks, which would be assuming you've got a full board. The secondary ability is just reviving, so you choose either to have the additional attacks, or you choose to just have a much greater field presence. The Star Copy is a normal spell card with the requirement, if your opponent controls a face-up level 7 or higher monster, you can activate this. As an effect, you can special summon 1 normal monster in your graveyard that has the same name as a face-up monster you control. So this is also useful if you're going for that strategy to just bring out the fusion monster, as this kind of helps you to just half the work. If you can Foolish Burial the monster from the deck to the graveyard and then just use this, easy enough, easy win. You've got Vice Slasher. This is a equipped spell card with a requirement. If you control 2 or more face-up normal monsters that are dragon types with the same name, you can equip this card to one of them. The effect is the equipped monster gains attack equal to its original attack. Also, it cannot attack directly. Now, this one I actually do like. I think of it a little bit like Chthonian, the Chthonian Alliance. That card gives a monster 800 attack points plus the number of that specific monster that you have on the field. So if it was used by Chaz Princeton in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I think it was in one of the first duels, I think it was like the second duel, and it was against Jane Yuki. He had 3 Chthonian soldiers on the field, and the first Chthonian soldier gained 800 attack points for each of them, so that became a 3,600 attack monster, instead of its puny 1,200 attack points. This has the ability to double your monster's attack points by just having another copy of itself on the field. So you can have, with the Star Dragir, make it a 5,000 attack monster. Only drag and downside of it is it prevents you from attacking directly, but again, that would be a bit too broken for this card given the state of rush duels at the moment. And we just have here as the multi-strike Dragon Dragir, which is going to be an over-rush rarity. So here we have the cards which are going as part of that Starcat's strategy. This is Silver Eyes Starcat. It's a level 4 Dark Attribute Beast type normal monster with 1400 attack and 200 defense. A Starcat with eyes of silver, they're filled with wonder. As you remember previously with what we've covered, we were wondering what beast type monsters will have the 200 defense points necessary to be revived. This is one of them. Next card is Golden Eyes Starcat. This is a level 4 light attribute beast type normal monster with 1500 attack and 200 defense. A Starcat with eyes of gold, they're filled with charm. So that's the second option, and then here is your kind of the boss monster of them, which is the Cat Claw Girl. It's a level 7 dark attribute warrior type effect monster with 2200 attack and 200 defense. The requirement is you can activate this by placing one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck, so that means you're not going to be able to access it immediately. The effect is to choose one beast monster with 200 defense in your graveyard and special summon it to your field face up. If you special summoned a normal monster, you can choose one fusion from your graveyard and directly set it in your spell and trap zone. That's an okay effect so long as you're able to use it. And as you can see, we have a fusion monster that pairs with the strategy. This must be the main, as I'd say, boss monster. So this is Starcat Strainer. It's a level 9 dark attribute beast warrior fusion effect monster. 2900 attack and 200 defense. The materials require a Cat Claw Girl and a Silver Eyes Starcat. The requirement is you can activate this by sending one other card you control to the graveyard. And the effect is to choose one face-up monster your opponent controls. It loses 2200 attack and defense until the end of the turn. If you sent a normal monster with an original defense of 200 to the graveyard for this effect's requirement, you can also choose and destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. The purpose of this card is it does need 2 specifically named cards, so you are going to have to run this in a very specific deck. The requirement itself, just by sending a card that you control to the graveyard, isn't a big deal. You do get to shut down your opponent's attack and defense points by 2200, the same as the previous monster, which is the Cat Claw Girl, so that makes sense. And if you happen to have sent a normal monster as part of the effect, just getting able to get the bonus of destroying a spell or trap card is always a good idea. And we have another fusion monster here. It's called Starcat Destroyer. It's a level 9 dark attribute beast warrior type fusion effect monster with 2900 attack and 200 defense. The materials require a Cat Claw Girl and a Gold Eyes Starcat. So I find this quite interesting. So both require the Cat Claw Girl as the material, but one requires the Silver Eyes, one needs the Gold Eyes. The requirement is you can activate this by shuffling 2 normal monsters with 200 defense back into your deck. The effect is to choose 2 monsters with 200 defense and the same level in your graveyard and special summon them to your field face up. If you special summoned a normal monster with this effect, that normal monster gains 2200 attack until the end of this turn. So the purpose of this is, unlike the other one which decreases your opponent's monster by 2200, this boosts yours by 2200. So yeah, I can understand where this kind of logic comes. And there is kind of a list of monsters that have 200 defense points. I'm not going to cover that now, but I may make a separate video a bit later that you can expect, just covering what those cards are if you're curious. So this is another card that has been confirmed within Yu-Gi-Oh! Rushals and the brand new pack. This is the Dragon's Double Doom. It's a normal trap card with the requirement, if you control a face-up high dragon or dragon monster, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can activate this. As an effect, you can choose which of your monsters receives that attack. If you control 2 or more monsters with the same name, you can also destroy one monster your opponent controls. The purpose of this card is you're able to redirect an attack, so if your opponent has a strong monster but it's only stronger than one of your monsters, you can redirect it to the stronger monster and guarantee that your monster survives the attack. Alternatively, if you do happen to have 2 monsters with the same name, this gets the additional effect to just destroy a monster. So if you can destroy the attacking monster, if it would be a threat over both of your monsters, that's also quite useful. And the other card we have here is Double Doom Dragon. So that picture that you saw on the trap card, that's what this monster is. It's a level 2 Dark Attribute Dragon type effect monster with 200 attack and defense. The requirement is you can activate this by sending the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. And the effect is you gain 200 life points, then you can choose one Dragon Double Doom in your graveyard and directly set it to your spell and trap zone. The cost requirement on this, just to send the top 2 cards from the deck to the graveyard, isn't that big of a deal. Even if you do send something quite useful, I'm sure there's ways of you recovering those cards. The life point gain is so minimal, it's laughable, there's no point to it. 200 life points isn't going to do you anything. It's not going to save you from one attack. But the ability to then bring back your Dragon's Double Doom, it's what the purpose of this card is for. So in this next thing, we have a little bit of information to do with something to do with Master Duel. So this is some new updates for Master Duel which have been revealed. They have been region locked in a stream, so I'm guessing that must have been specifically for the Japanese. But there was actually a bit of a conversion from the Twitter account for the game. First bit of news is there's going to be a brand new solo mode that's going to be focused on the mutants. So it's going to be make it easier for you to get those mutant cards if you haven't already obtained them. And there's also going to be a story mode which is based on this. This solo mode made its debut exclusively at the Makuhari Messe event, which was held earlier this year. They don't have the exact date, but just have an idea of kind of coming up dates. There is going to be one of your new friends, and it's going to be the character known as Totally Awesome. Since the description may heavily change once it's localized, it's a parent/kid pair of toads. There are a number of theories for the origin of its name, with one theory being their skin that is white as mochi, and the more popular theory that they keep taking things back home, like that mikan that they got from who knows where. As explained, this means to take back home, and it's also the union of mochi and toad. This is going to be effectively released as of the 1st of January 2023, so you prepare for like a download update maybe end of December just to get ready for this. I don't know whether they've already got this already installed within the game and are just going to release it, or whether you need to have to make a another kind of download on the system like an update. There's going to be a brand new pack called Beginning of Turmoil. A new selection pack has been announced. It will include ace monsters of powerful themes like the ones which have been shown on the covers. So if you aren't aware or are unfamiliar with Yu-Gi-Oh, these are 3 specific archetypes. 2 of them are quite annoying. The third I'm not so fussed over. You've got the Sword Souls. These are just a bunch of worm-based monsters. There's a few synchro monsters that are very difficult to actually get over. You have the branded series of monsters which are mostly fusion monsters. They're very difficult to get over as well. And then you've got the Ice Jade monsters. So as you can see, the names here: Sword Soul, Sinister Sovereign, Shishing Longyan, You've got Despian Quiritus and Ice Jade Koshmushkla. I've messed that last one up at least. You know, I might not botch the other ones, but that one is definitely botched. And it will also include brand new cards. So you've got Gunkan Suship Shari Red, which is this one, and then Dynamorphia Rexterm, which is that one. This pack will be arriving during the end of December, so this is actually coming prior to that Totally Awesome update. So we have some more information to do with Duel Links as part of the 6th anniversary that's just been confirmed. Everyone is going to be getting a copy of Mirror Force. Over the days, tickets will be supplied to let you pick hard to get cards, and 1,000 gems, a skill ticket, a character ticket, and new sleeves and mats will all be received. So make sure to log in, even if you're not an avid player. For me, I'm not an avid player. I've played it before, but I kind of got bored of it. So by that stand, if you want to, even if you just want to pick this up, it's just a simple login, just download the data, and there you go, you've got access. Here is some more news for Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, and this is also revealing a new character. The new characters will be appearing as Ryuga Tremolo and Ryuga Fazler. Their surname means Palace of the Dragon King. There's another new character that will be appearing, but their identity is not being revealed as of the moment, so I'm guessing they're going to be a more important character. As you can see, there's one that's been kind of blacked out. I wonder what their purposes are. They going to be helpful, or are they going to be villains within the series? Alongside this news, we have some information about Legend Awakening pack. This pack is going to have its official release on March the 4th, 2023, and the cover card and the key selling point of the pack is going to be the 5-headed dragon, the legendary mythic dragon from the original anime. They mentioned on the stream it's currently extremely powerful and that there is something interesting to go with it, as at current it's currently unable to be summoned by the current rules, since you can only have 3 monsters on the field and it requires 5 materials. So the interesting part of that is I don't think polymerization's in their game. I think they've got fusion that specifically requires you to fusion summon from the field. So I'm guessing there's going to be some access point that you can actually fuse from the hand. Either they're going to be introducing a mixed card which fuses from the field and the hand, or they're going to have one which allows you to fuse from the hand. And here is the 5-headed dragon itself, and this is going to be what the artwork image is. It's a level 12 attribute dragon type fusion effect monster. It's got 5,000 attack and 5,000 defense, and it requires 5 dragon monsters as part of its materials. This card cannot be special summoned except by a fusion summon. There is no requirements, and the continuous effect, this card cannot be destroyed by battle by dark, earth, water, fire, or wind monsters. So I'm guessing this is where you have the access to fusion summoning, because it just requires 5 dragon monsters, and I'm not guessing it's going to be specific to the field. I'm sure you're going to be able to use the hand. And here we have some general news from Jump Festa on the second day. Rushells will be introducing a limit regulation, which is a forbidden and limited list starting in effect of January 1st, 2023. They're going to be working in the same fashion as the OCG and TCG, and there are going to be several banned and forbidden cards. So, for example, there is no forbidden ones at the moment, but you do have the Neck-Made Nana, the Thunderbolt, the Blazing Thunder, and the Secret Order, which are all going to be limited, and you have no semi-limited cards. The next update is to the Yugioh Go Rush game on the Switch, which will include these limit regulations. And lastly, on this section, you've got the events for Rush Duels as the Galaxy Cup aim to be the strongest duelist in Japan. Area number 1 showdown events at satellite shops and area events to decide the strongest in your area. So they're going to be looking at more competitive style Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels. Tournament battles, regular tournaments for single battles and match battles, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Day casual event on the day products have been released. So these are all confirmations. Just so you get a flavour of what these 3 cards which have been limited and maybe the reasons behind them, I'm just going to have a quick search to find out what they do. So Neck-Made Nana. Neck-Made Nana. So I'm going to just bring that up. And here we go. Here is Neck-Made Nana. It's a light attribute zombie type effect monster. It's a level 5 with 1100 attack and 700 defense. The requirement is to send this face-up card from the field to the graveyard, and the effect is to place 1 level 7 monster from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck and draw 2 cards. This is a draw card, so I'm guessing that's the reason it's been banned. Maybe people have been abusing the draw power on this, and yeah, that's really the only reason I can kind of see it, any concerns with it. Let's think of Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt, what are you? Thunderbolt. Are you the Blazing Thunder, or are you the Lightning? The Blazing Thunder. Okay, it's the Blazing Thunder. That's the problem. So this is a fire attribute thunder type level 7 with 2300 attack and 1900 defense. The requirement is during the turn you normal summon this card, send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. The effect is this card gains 300 attack until the end of this turn. If you have 4 or more level 7 monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 7 monster from your graveyard face up to your field. Yeah, I can kind of see the reason why this has been limited. Well, semi-limited, because its cost requirement is just barely anything. You just send the top card from the deck to the graveyard. This card gains 300 attack points instantly, so it's 2600 attack points. And if you happen to already have 4 or more level 7 monsters with different names in the graveyard, you're just able to special summon any of them. And they have no restrictions to them. They can have their effects, as well as whatever their attack points are, and they can attack directly, they can attack into monsters, there isn't any limitation. And the final card is Secret Order. See what you are, Secret Order. Secret Order. That's it. Okay, so Secret Order is a normal spell card. It has no requirements, and the effect is to special summon one level 7 normal monster from your hand or graveyard face up to your field. This turn, the monster special summoned by this effect gains 700 attack and cannot be destroyed by an opponent's trap card effects. Yes, I can also see why this has been semi-limited. This just lets you revive any of your level 7 normal monsters, and they can be either from the hand or the graveyard, so you can Foolish Burial them, or you can just have it sitting in the hand ready to use. It gains 700 attack points, so that's a decent stat increase, and it provides that all-important protection from trap destruction effects, which makes it quite a threat. So as you can see, we have a confirmation of another Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels pack, and this is called Maximum Force. The only thing that can defeat a Maximum is another Maximum, so this emphasises Maximum monsters. The first Versus pack, designed to help you build a deck practically out of the pack's contents, will be released on the April the 8th, 2023, as of now. This version of the Versus pack contains the cards you need to build 2 different types of decks, whose core features is Maximum Summon. So along with new Maximum monsters, there'll also be cards perfect for building your deck that are reprinted in this pack. It's going to have up to 60 different cards, priced at 176 yen for 1 pack of 5 cards, and there are 15 packs per box. So that's actually quite decent, because these are going to be almost like structure decks that you can just build straight out from. You're not having to purchase additional cards. You can just start off with this and then build up as you like. It also just gives younger players who don't maybe have the ability or the funding to acquire these cards, to be able to get these as some type of present, maybe as an Easter gift. So I definitely think this is the right direction for Konami to introduce them. And also Maximum monsters, for most people, they're not familiar about how these cards work. There are 3 cards to them. There's a left version, there's a middle version, and there's the right version. The left and the right both have effects which they can grant to the middle version, and the middle version has either its normal kind of base attack stat, but if it's combined with the left and the right versions, it has its maximum attack, which is usually like 1,000 points higher. It makes it like a 3,800 attack monsters, somewhere around that to 4,000 attack. That's kind of the baseline of some of the more powerful ones. So it's definitely something I would consider to be very interesting. And here we have confirmation of a brand new set. This is going to be the first in the new rotation of sets. Every April they have the brand new rotation of booster packs, and this is the one that's coming out next. This is called Duelist Nexus. Are you ready for the new series to begin? The first core booster pack of 2023. On sale April 22nd, 2023. Contains support cards for old themes as well as brand new themes. The first print of the set will contain the +1 bonus pack as usual, and a quarter century secret rares will replace the usual prismatic secret rares. They're the OCG equivalent of Starlight rares to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Official card game. Personally, I'm really looking forward to this. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was based on whatever series it was going off of, and now since they've split and gone into doing the anime for Rush Duels instead of for the main series, we tend to get less predictable support and more randomized support. So, for example, you've just seen recently the introduction of the brand new Super Heavy Samurai support. Arguably, those cards wouldn't have been supported most likely if there'd been a specific series with a brand new set of monsters or extra deck cards. Those would have been forgotten, or the support of them would have come at a point where they're no longer relevant. Personally, I love this, and I am excited about the direction that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going. So thank you guys for everyone who managed to attend the live stream. I really appreciate any feedback you have. Put those in the comments down below. If you like my content, I really would like you to share it and maybe consider subscribing. I do try my best with these videos, and I've got over 2,000 videos on this channel, so I would invite you to watch any of those that kind of take your fancy, that you really enjoy and really appreciate. And as always, I'm going to be trying to do some more live streams throughout the Christmas period. So until then, I will see you in the next one.